All right, good morning, 7th grade students, or maybe good afternoon or good evening, depending on when you're watching this. I hope you all are staying warm. As you can see, I've got a couple layers on here because my house is cold, but I can only imagine how cold school would have been if we were there. So today we're going to be working on page 117 and 118, finishing out our 4 types of sentence structures. On Thursday, what day is this? This is Tuesday, yes. On Thursday, we went over simple sentences and compound sentences. Today, we're going to be covering the last 2. So if you look on page 117, we have our definition with the 2 blanks there. The entire sentence is, a complex sentence has one independent clause and at least one dependent clause. So those 2 blanks are, the first blank is complex sentence, and the second blank is at least one. So please pause the video if you need to and fill those in. Moving on to the examples. We have example 1. The Cyrillic alphabet, which is the writing system for Russian, has 31 characters. The first thing that I want you to do is put parentheses around the clause, which is the writing system for Russian. This is bordered on either side by commas. So just put a parentheses around that clause so you can see it more clearly. Because what I want you to see is that this is a sentence that is complex. It has one independent, one dependent clause, but the dependent clause is in the middle of the independent clause. Okay, so to start that sentence off, our first subject is the Cyrillic alphabet. Okay, that's the thing that we're talking about in this sentence. The verb that goes with that is all the way at the other side of the commas, where it says has. The dependent clause is the Cyrillic alphabet has 31 characters. Okay, subject is the Cyrillic alphabet, verb is has, and that all together makes a complete thought. It's an independent clause. In the middle, you have which is the writing system for Russian. Okay, the subject is which, the pronoun which. The verb is. And that whole clause cannot stand on its own because we're not asking it as a question. And that is being used to describe the Cyrillic alphabet. So a little extra knowledge here is that whole clause is acting as an adjective clause describing the Cyrillic alphabet. So there's our dependent clause in the middle of the independent clause. Second example. Though Madge was afraid of spiders, she braved the webbed forest with nothing but a torch. We have 2 clauses there as well in this complex sentence. The first subject and verb set is Madge was. Okay, Madge is our subject, was is the verb, and that little word though in front of it, circle it, okay, that is the subordinating conjunction, making this so that this clause cannot stand on its own. Still has a subject and a verb. We're talking about our right and our left arm like we wrote on there last week, subject and verb, and though is the word that makes it so it can't stand on its own. The second subject and verb set is she braved, she being the subject, brave being a verb. If I say she braved the web forest with nothing but a torch, that makes sense on its own. It's a complete thought there. Third example sentence is Karen kept an eye out for a good Japanese restaurant because she was very hungry. I know Karen. This is real life. She really does love Japanese food and would stop at pretty much any good Japanese restaurant. I love it. Okay, first subject and verb set is Karen kept. Okay, and then an eye out, and then for a good Japanese restaurant, it's a prepositional phrase. Let's cross that out. Okay, and then because is our subordinating conjunction in there. It is setting off then the dependent clause. And then she was is the second subject and verb set. She is the subject, was is the verb, and very hungry. So the independent clause is Karen kept an eye out for a good Japanese restaurant. The dependent clause, because she was very hungry, cannot stand on its own. It needs to be attached to that independent clause. Okay? We're not going to do the exercise right now. Let's flip quickly to page 118. The fourth and final type of sentence structure is a compound complex sentence. And it has at least 2 independent clauses to make it compound, and at least 1 dependent clause to add that complex element in there. So 3 blanks. The first blank, compound complex. Put a little dash in between the words. Second blank, at least 2. And third blank is just the word one. Pause the video if you need to fill those in. The examples If we look at the first one, Sequoyah, who lived from 1766 to 1843, created a writing system, and he taught it to other Cherokee. Again, I want you to put parentheses around who lived from 1766 to 1843. That's our dependent clause that is inside a greater independent clause. So let's just look at the independent clauses. What makes this a compound complex sentence? The first subject and verb set, Sequoyah created. Okay, Sequoyah is on the left of that dependent clause. The verb is on the right. And if I said Sequoyah created a writing system, boom, makes sense on its own. You don't need me to say anything else for the point to get across there. Notice we also have a comma and a coordinating conjunction. Okay, so thinking of Arnold Schwarzenegger when he shows off his muscles because he was in Mr. Universe. No. The comma is the one bicep, the coordinating conjunction is the other, and he takes the two independent clauses and he pulls them together, okay? If you don't have the comma and the coordinating conjunction, it's not strong enough. So that's what makes it a compound sentence, is you have two independent ones being strongly held together by the comma and the coordinating conjunction. So strong. So then we look at the second one. He taught it to other Cherokee. Makes sense on its own. Subject and verb set, he taught. Okay, so there's our compound element. Go back and look at what's in the parentheses. Who lived from 1766 to 1843. Our subject is the pronoun who. Verb is lived. Okay? And because we're not asking it as a question, it's not an independent clause. It is dependent on the rest of the sentence to make sense. And just like with our complex sentence example, this clause, the whole thing is acting as an adjective to describe Sequoyah. I also think some of you need to put Sequoyah on your list of possible baby names for your future sons or daughters. I think they would make an impact. Okay. Second example sentence. Because she hated chocolate, Donna refused to eat the cauldron cake and she passed on the chocolate mousse pie. The obvious thing here is that Donna is crazy and chocolate is amazing and she needs to eat it. But if we break down the grammar of this sentence, okay, we have, again, two independent clauses, one dependent clause. Hopefully you see right away that word because. By now you're recognizing it as automatic subordinating conjunction. So because is what makes that first subject and verb set not able to stand on its own. Subject is she, verb is hated, because she hated chocolate. There's your dependent clause. Okay. Then after the comma we have Donna refused to eat the cauldron cake. Subject is Donna, refused is the verb. That whole thing is our complete thought there. Donna refused to eat the cauldron cake. And then again, we have our Arnold Schwarzenegger, comma, coordinating conjunction. And it's pulling in that second independent clause. She is the subject, past is the verb. She passed on the chocolate mousse pie. Okay, so do you see there? Dependent clause, independent clause, independent clause. Compound complex sentence. Third example. Ulrich was from Germany. Maybe he knows Arnold. Ulrika, I guess it's the feminine name. And she had only been in the States for 3 weeks, though she had read many books about the wonders of Indiana. I bet those was compelling stories. Okay, so the first clause that we see is Ulrika was from Germany. Independent, makes sense on its own. Subject is Ulrika, verb is was. We know she's from Germany. We don't need to know anything else for that to make sense. Then we have our sign there, comma, coordinating conjunction. And she had only been in the States for 3 weeks. Don't need to know anything else. There's our complete thought. So we have our subject as she. Verb, make sure you label both of these, is had been. Had been. Remember, sometimes it's a phrase, more than one word. And we have a comma and a subordinating conjunction. So this time our dependent clause is on the end of the sentence. Okay? Though, there's the subordinating conjunction, she had read many books about the wonders of Indiana. She is the subject. Had read is the verb phrase. Okay? Had read what? Many books. There's your direct object. And then about the wonders and of Indiana, that's just prepositional phrases. So you can cross those out if it helps you see them. Okay? Please feel free to go back through this video, click on the different parts on the timeline that will help you most work through these examples. When you have everything on the examples on both page 117 and 118 labeled, your homework is going to be to do the exercises on the bottom of 117 and 118. So 1 through 7 on 117 and 1 through 8 on 118. You also need to study for your spelling test that's going to be on Thursday. So when we get to school, as long as the heater is fixed on Thursday, we are going to go through the example sentences from the homework on 117, 118 in class so that we can break them down together and be there in class. So if you have questions for me, because these are the more complicated types of sentences, we can work on those together. We will have the spelling test unless we have to miss school again because the heater is still out. In that case, I will remind you to have a parent give you the spelling test at home. Okay? But other than that, just workbook pages. See ya.